Hello, Nigel. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks.
The first chance we've had to speak to you since the January transfer window shut. Was Monday a relatively quiet day for you?
Yeah, very quiet. Yeah, yeah, very. Yeah, I told you it would be.
Yes, as predicted. There were reports of interest in Antoine Semenyo. Did the club receive any bids or offers for him?
Well, if they did, I don't know about it, so I don't need to. Yeah, don't think we had any intention of doing anything. So if there were, um, requests or bids put in, it's something that yeah, I didn't know about on the day. But I'm not bothered, to be fair. Got no intention of him going, so that's okay.
It was kind of a question of how strong was the desire to keep hold of your best players, but moving forward, how strong is the desire to keep hold of your best players?
Well, I think we've said on many occasions, and I think you'll be aware of what our owners would like, and that is um, to create a team with as many homegrown players as possible, and of course we will have to get the balance right between managing our financial situation that we're in, as well as keeping our best players. But we have no intention of putting them on the market. That's not our intention at all. We're trying to reshape the squad in a way which is sustainable. And that's going to take time, and it's going to take compromise from time to time, you know. So I'm not wet behind the ears. I don't expect everybody to stay here indefinitely. There may be the necessity at some point to sell one of our talented players, um, for us to negotiate a way through this next period of time. But the intention is not to sell them. You know, that's all I can say categorically. I can't give you any detail outside of that what it'll look like. But I don't think our fans want to hear any more knockbacks than we've already had. I mean, they've already had to come to terms with the fact that, you know, we are in a situation where we're going to have to be very, very careful over the next 2 or 3 years, and we have to manage our way and negotiate that in a sensible way. That doesn't mean that we won't do business. You know, it doesn't mean that there will never be anybody coming in. But I tried to brief you. I think even from the summer that January wasn't going to be a window where there was a lot happening. But of course, everybody follows suit, or appears to, in terms of wanting to make a big deal out of it. It was never our intention to do much business. I'm very pleased that we got Tim in, and you know, in terms of players going the other way, just didn't materialise. But I can't speak for how other clubs do their business and how scattergun they are in their approach. But I mean, you know, there were approaches for some of our players which I actually just shook my head out, because one club hadn't got a clue who they wanted, but they wanted somebody, and so it was just it was it's quite reassuring to know that at least we have got a plan. So there you go.
Yeah, and that plan's different to other Championship clubs. You see
I
Bournemouth
don't know. I can't talk for other clubs. I can only talk from experience of dealing with bizarre requests from other places which didn't materialise.
Is it possible though to compete with other clubs who, you know, I mentioned Bournemouth, they made 5 signings on Monday. Are you confident that you can compete with clubs who do have money to spend, money to burn, it would seem?
I don't know whether they've got money to burn or whether their strategy is to try and do everything they can to make sure they go up in 1 year. Whether that is a sustainable strategy or not, that they have parachute payments. So I suppose their threshold for putting themselves at risk is a lot bigger than ours. But look, I'm not really bothered about other clubs. We have to manage with the circumstances that we currently have. How we've got there is not really for me to debate on a forum like this. It's about managing in the moment, and it's about trying to negotiate our way out of a situation that we find ourselves in. So, can we compete? Well, hopefully in time that we will, our own squad continues to evolve and develop. We're short on numbers, yeah. But what I would say about other clubs, if they take 4, 5, 6 players in, I don't know how many left there, but they've got an ever increasing squad, which becomes, there are dangers of having too many players as well. I don't like collecting players. It's a fruitless pastime in my own opinion.
Does anything change at all now you know that this is the squad you've got to work with? There's still 17 games of the championship season still to go.
In what way changed?
In terms of, which players are staying, which, there was obviously a lot of speculation about some players. No.
I knew that anyway, really. And I don't tend to get hung up with having to deal with the occasional curveball. So, it happens in football, but we're still talking about it now, aren't we? So it's shut, but you're still asking questions about it. So it shows you it's either there's not a lot of news out there, or people have an interest in it, which is disproportionate, I think.
There was some nice positive news in the week that Eamon's signed a new contract, a local boy done good. How has he developed since he's become from an up-and-coming promising player to a member of your first team squad?
Well, he, like most young players, will have ups and downs. He's on the start of a new journey now. So he's a first team member, and he will be judged as a first team member now. So the expectations sometimes can rise too quickly for young players, but I like his temperament. He's got ability, he's got a good temperament, he's got a lot of tenacity about him as well. So but there's no doubt that he will have setbacks. I mean, he played for the under-23s the other day and didn't have one of his best games. So that is, but I've got no doubts that if he plays at the weekend, that he'll be able to go out there and affect the game in a positive way. That's what I think about him. He's a young player with talent who will we need to be mindful of how he develops, and that the challenges that we present for him are achievable. And that's one of the problems. That is one of the problems that we have at the moment. We have a lot of, or potential problems, we have a lot of players who are in that category. So, that is, we need to be mindful of that, but they're all good enough. And that's why I think there is a reason to be positive about where we go to as a football club, so. I think he has a good future ahead of him if he's continues to develop and maximizes the opportunities he gets, because it's not just about we don't do it for him, he has to do it for himself as well, and that's where temperament becomes even more important.
And it was nice to see so many Preston fans praise you as an opposition on Saturday, and Hanoa in particular.
Yeah, I don't think they would have done had they not got the equaliser. But
I wonder with Hanoa, has he matured and improved in the year or so that you've had him under your stewardship?
I think that's for you to comment on, not me. All I would say is that what he has been able to do this season is play his way through a very difficult patch of form that he had. He had, he's been really good recently. He's not been at his best. He knows that. He's worked hard at his game. So again, for a young player to have that opportunity, now whether that is circumstances or whether it is selection, it doesn't really matter. What he has done is found a way of being game effective and deal with his own if you like, disappointment that he's not been playing as well as he can do. Now that speaks volumes in itself. So yeah, he's again another young player who's forging his own career, and he's doing it very well.
In terms of team news, how's the squad looking? Any updates on Andy, Rob, Matty?
Say that again, Andy.
So Andy King and Rob Atkinson and Matty James.
Yeah, they won't be available. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be similar. Yeah.
Fine. And Blackpool, who you played, it seems a long time ago now. I think August.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I remember their equaliser though.
I bet they got a very good draw at Fulham last week. I think they're above you in the league at the moment. How good a job is Neil Critchley doing at Blackpool this season?
Well, obviously a good job. They're a side who know what they are. They've got an identity. They generally try and play their own way and their own system. They've changed it a little bit recently, but fair play. I mean, not an easy result to get, is it? At Fulham, a positive one. So we expect it to be a tough game. Yeah,
have a safe trip.
Not very nice weather up there as well.
Thank you very much, Nigel.
Yeah, pleasure. Cheers.
Hi, Nigel.
Greetings.
How are you?
I'm all right. You?
Good. Yeah, very good. Thank you. I just want to get a word firstly on the Ashton Gate 8 and kind of the importance on the history of educating the younger fans in particular on kind of the sacrifices that were made for the club.
Yeah.
On the anniversary. I just want to get your word on it, really.
Well, having done a bit of background on it myself, I think we need to have a realistic perspective on it, and that is that the 8 individuals who, in the end, did a very selfless thing, had to endure criticism, threats, being treated badly by the club. And so it's, we're 40 years further on, it's good to be able to celebrate it. And the club exists because of their actions. But having read some of the personal accounts, I think we have to remind ourselves that back in the 80s there, a very different climate, a different perception. Players these days have a lot greater protection. Both in terms of, the PFA back then, I don't know how long the PFA had been going, but from what I gather, they didn't get any protection, and certainly how the news was delivered to them was pretty shabby, really. So yes, we are here because the club didn't go into liquidation, because those 8 players decided to. And a lot of them, well, some of them were locals, and are still in the area now, still supporters of Bristol City. So I can imagine that for back in those days, players didn't earn the types of wages that they do now, and certainly to make that sort of a decision to tear up your contract and leave yourself financially in a vulnerable position is a big thing to do. So I think it's important we do recognise that. I think it's important that there is that the celebration is done in a way which brings to light just what it meant for those people. So I think we should, both as a football club and as a community, recognise their own, it would be individual for each of them, sacrifices that they made so that this club could remain solvent. That's very important to recognise.
I know you probably don't particularly want to speak too much about the transfer window, but you brought in one addition. Well, just going by previous responses, really. But more about goings on. I guess. But you strengthened at the back. I mean, you kept hold of the top talent, and that has to be considered a success for you.
Look, as I pointed out, if there was interest, you know, I'm not really. All I need to know about is if a deal's done. You know, apart from that, the rest of it, I'm not really too fussed about. It's a. I think I've said it on many occasions. I don't think there's any point going over old ground about what the January window represents. It's now that it's closed, we have what we have. Whether that turns out to be not enough, we'll see. But I think, you know, once we get one or two back from injury, we have a good mixture. Players that we may be interested in either weren't achievable or available. So again, I don't really want to just get numbers in for the sake of it. So it's not the one deal that we did do with Tim is a sensible one for us and for him. So yeah, it's we are where we are now.
Were you close to bringing in another player at all?
No, not really. No.
Okay. And there was speculation around Naki Wells and a bit of Palmer too. Obviously, nothing came of that. Can they look at kind of what Jay Da Silva has done in forcing his way back into the team and kind of take confidence knowing that, you know, they can play more minutes in the future if they put their mind to it?
I've never really had a question mark over whether Jay can do it or not. I think we all recognise he's quite a gifted footballer, and he's continued to train very well. When he's been asked to do a job in the side, he's gone in there, and you know, I mean, he's a bright lad, so he's able to deal with that situation. He's also a very likable lad. I mean, you know, don't build anything into situations that it's to do with the you know, personal side of it at all. He's a professional footballer, so I would expect him to go in there and be able to do a job. And it's really quite simple. The door's never been closed on anybody, you know. So it's one of those things. I try and be as open as I can with players, even if it's bad news. I think you're better off being blunt with people. If it's no point beating about the bush with bad news. You might as well just get straight to the point. So I always try and be as fair as I can be, but that doesn't always mean that you know, fairness feels the same for everybody. It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, Jay's, I think, performed pretty well. I mean, last week I thought he was, especially in the first half, he was very, very good. So we're going to need everybody that we have on board at the moment. And, you know, I suppose there is one benefit of your questions that you like answering about or asking about the windows. It's shut, so there's no escape now.
And just going back to Benarous' new deal, is he a player that you hope to give a few more minutes to between now and the end of the season? He
will get pitch time, yeah. There's no doubt about it. You know, the size of squad that we have now, it's inevitable that people, and this is one of the, I suppose this is one of the positives with a smaller squad, is that players are never very far away from either the bench or starting. So yeah, we have a position at the moment where we've got one or two injured that we would like back, but a bit quicker, but we'll deal with it. And yeah, that's so Jay's found his way back into the team and has played well, and I think that's a good message to anybody who's currently not in the team, that they actually need to be ready themselves to take the chance, because they're going to get an opportunity. It's whether they're able to take the chance themselves. So I'm not spoon feeding anybody.
It must be an exciting for you and exciting for the supporters in particular that you have three very young, talented central midfielders all vying for game time in the position in Massengo, Scott, and Benarous. Is it kind of?
But they'll play where they're put.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, so Alex Scott's played at wing back, Eamon's played at wing back, both played at tens. Both Han Noah and Alex Scott are playing deeper mid roles at the moment, and they're doing it well. So, you know, nobody's talking about Alex Scott playing out of position now. He's playing a bit deeper, like they were when it was. You know, is his best position the 10? You know, they're playing where the team needs them to play, and they're doing well. And that's what it's about. It's a part of their football education, but it's also a part of our squad's development, because there is a necessity for players to play where the team needs them to play at the moment.
And just a final word on Robbie Cundy. He finally made his debut, long awaited debut at the weekend. How much of a relief is that for the player to finally get back on the pitch?
Well, you'll have to ask him that at some point when you have a chat with him. But I know that he was excited to be in the squad for starters, but for him to actually get on in the game was, I think for him, I imagine there would be a mixture of elation and relief, probably too, that he'd had to wait for so long and be patient and actually get the opportunity. So, but there was nothing sentimental about putting him on. It was about, we thought it was the right thing to do. So he's a good defender.
Lige, good luck for Saturday.
Thank you.
Hey Nigel, the under-23 games on Tuesday, you referenced it earlier with regards to Iman. Danny and Naki both played 90 minutes. Was that your decision, or did they put their hands up and say they wanted to play?
Why is that important?
Because I'm interested, if you've asked them to play for the under-23s, it's with a mind for them to play for the first team, in terms of getting their match fitness up.
They need pitch time, both of them. So look, if players are coming off the bench in a first team game and they've had no pitch time, you know, it's in their own interest to play. So for Naki, for Danny, Tommy Conway, Sam Bell, Eamon, they all needed pitch time because they've not had a lot recently. So it's just common sense. It's common sense that they need, even though under 23 games aren't the same as championship games, but there is still a competitiveness and an organizational side of a structured game which is different to training. So regardless of which way around it was, it doesn't matter. I think that the fact that I thought they acquitted themselves pretty well. They all recognise that they need some pitch time, so they are.
Yeah, because it was the first time they played for the under-23s. That's why it was interesting. Like, why now? Why at this time did those two senior players play?
Because they needed a game. They need some pitch time. It's like conditioning. You can do physical conditioning, but match conditioning, you get in matches. So those players need it.
One of the names you didn't mention as a player who's came back and kind of we didn't know he'd been out injured for this long, is James Morton. I know he very nearly left the club in the summer. Because you talked about at the start of the season about players who you see part of the first team, part of the 23s. Where does he kind of sit? Yeah,
well, I mean, James is very, he's had a difficult time because he nearly got his move away in the summer and it didn't happen. I mean, he's currently not in the first team squad, if that's what you sort of ask. If you want a straight answer, he's not there. And I've spoken to him at length about his own scenario. And it's been frustrating for him because he needs to be playing first team football somewhere now. He's a decent footballer. He's a really good lad as well. and he's had a very frustrating time with injury. So hopefully he can find himself somewhere at some point, because it's a waste of somebody's talent not to be playing first team football at the level that it's right for them.
Could we just have an update? Is there any update on how Noah's contract has that developed in any way at all?
No, not as far as I know. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get to an agreement with him, but he's a lad who doesn't really want to. You know, he's not overly involved in that. You know, he wants to concentrate on his football. We are very keen to get to some sort of conclusion. And when there's an update, we'll let you know. But you know, it's one of those where you know, we're trying to secure him for a longer period. Yeah.
Just finally on Andy King and Rob, they had scans last week. Curtis said they were going for scans last week. Has that revealed good news?
Yeah, I didn't watch Curtis's press conference, so I don't know what he said.
But you obviously would have known they were going for scans. So has that revealed positive news or not so positive news?
King has had surgery, so he's already had surgery. And Rob,
and is
Rob will be out for I don't know, maybe 3 more weeks, something like that.
Is that the back or the calf?
It's his calf. So he didn't even.
Calf, yeah.
Yeah, looks a bit daft, doesn't it? But Rob on the pitch said it's me back, and then he realised when he got off it was his calf too. There we go. Both.
Just one more. George Tanner, you said 2 months at the end of December. Is that still looking the way?
How long ago was that?
End of December, I think you said it.
How many weeks have we been?
Well, that's what we're kind of bang in the middle.
So. No idea. Yeah, something like that. He'll be on track, I think. So hopefully on track. Yeah, he's working very hard. Yeah.
Thanks, Nigel.
Good stuff.
And I just briefly, I know he's spoken about Robbie Cundy, but I just wanted to know what you've made of him returning to the fold, because it has been a long journey back for him, and it was his debut last week. But what have you made of him being in the first team picture?
Well, look, I mean, Robbie's been training with us now for a while, maybe a couple of months, and it's really difficult to sort of place exactly where he is, because I've not seen him play Championship football before, and because of the nature of his injury, there is always there's always something thinking: is he going to be able to manage this type of, or can he manage the return? But he's done really well. He's trained hard. He knows what he's good at. He's played 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then 70, and then a full game. He's like he's had a build up back into game experience, and we needed him on the bench basically. So he's had probably a bit of an accelerated return, but I know he's a good defender. He knows what he is himself. So I think, look, all I can say is it's good. It's a bonus that we've got him back, and that he's in and around the first team will be of benefit to us for the rest of the season.